We flipped a coin before the evening, and Tim Scurlock will start with his opening remarks, which he will begin now.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeremy. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. Okay, perfect. So throughout this opening presentation, I guess I just want to give you guys a bit of context and who we are, what we've been able to do this past year, and what some of our hopes are for this upcoming year. So as Jeremy said, my name is Tim Scurlock. I'm currently serving as the student body president. This past year, I was able to serve as VP for Public Relations under Aaron Agello and his cabinet, and the year before I was the senator for Hodson Hall. The second semester of my freshman year. So just getting started a little bit, talking about our vision. When Dr. Wright was inaugurated this past fall, he had a particular emphasis on the idea of one community, one body, one people. So in reading Dr. Wright's verse of the year, it says, and it's from Revelation 7:9, not to be a pastor right now or anything, but after this I looked, and there before was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and in front of the Lamb. And in talking, I'm just going to keep adjusting this, okay, that helps a lot. And in talking about this, Dr. Wright articulated this vision in discussing the three primary entities that make up the Indiana Wesleyan community. So we have student development, student life, which on this residential campus is overseen by Michael Moffitt, the VP for Student Development. We have academic life, academic affairs, which is overseen by Dr. Darlene Bressler. And we have the chaplaincy, the DOC, which is overseen, and the mission is conducted sort of by Dr. Lowe. So this idea of one really comes from Dr. Wright's vision for reconciliation, for the integration of these three entities that make up the university, and recognizing that we're all a part of the same Christian community. So I'll be able to delve a little deeper into this vision and this philosophy as we go into the guided discussion here in a little bit, but just to give you guys a bit of an opening. Talking about the lovely cabinet that has been selected for this upcoming year, starting with Phil Ross. He'll be serving as Executive Vice President. Phil is currently on my cabinet as the VP for Operations and Student Services, and last year he was able to serve as the Senator for Scripture Hall. Phil has a ton of experience, as I just referenced, with SGA. He was also involved in New Student Orientation for the Honors College, and is currently the Social Chair for Chorale, so things that are mostly managerial, which really plays well into the EVP position. Eliza Mowry, the VP for Student Life, a little bit about her and her background. Last year, she was able to serve as a resident assistant in Evans, and this year she's been involved in different ministries and chaplaincy sort of programs with the Well and Surge. And just to give a bit of context, I guess, on the VP for Student Life, their primary function, their primary responsibility is to work with student development and work with the chaplaincy, the DOC. So Eliza's a perfect fit for the position and is more than equipped to address specific issues that come up within that context. Dave Priest, great friend. I was able to work with him this past year. He served as the Senate Chair under Aaron Agello and has had several opportunities this year to also help out with an SGA, particularly in the role as president for Alpha Chi, the Honor Society here on campus. We worked together to coordinate a couple of the forums that you saw both last semester and this semester, and our upcoming one is in March on Science and Faith. Melissa Campbell, she's from Canada, fun fact. Canada won today, by the way. Melissa is hoping to serve, if elected, as the VP for Financial Affairs, and that position works directly with student organizations, helping them through some of their financial concerns, working to get ERFs filled out, and then also empowering them programmatically. So she was actually able to serve as a treasurer for Student Education Association and then president, which gives her really, I guess, insight into what student organizations need and what she can do to help and lend a hand through some of those concerns. Jake Smith, he's unable to join us tonight. Unfortunately, he has a night class, but he'll be serving in SGA's new position as the VP for Marketing and Communication. Jake is currently the marketing manager for McConn and has extensive experience in marketing and business administration and is studying marketing and business administration here. Real quick, the road thus far, we've been able to do quite a few things this year, including changes to new student orientation, LDR 150, adding Theology 1 to the general education curriculum, media policy, forum series, as I mentioned, textbook butler, academic research, cuisine team with Phil Ross, addressing the issue of wings and tots, increasing summer language options, and creating the new position for VP for Marketing and Communication. Sorry, I'm out of time. I'll be able to touch a little bit more on those things in the upcoming guided discussion. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Tim. And now we are going to go over to Mr. Bowers for his 5 minutes of opening remarks.
Hello guys, my name is Caleb Bowers and I'm running for president against Tim. My cabinet is here tonight with me except for one, and we'll get to them. Our mission though is to echo the voice of the student body. We feel that SGA has lost touch to some degree with the students, and we want to bring the students back into SGA so that they have a say in the agenda they want us to address, in addition to things administrators want us to address for you guys as well. One of the main things about me, I love coffee. I'm probably McConn's best customer, but I also work for Dr. Bartley as his student worker. He's the division chair of the Social Sciences Division. I'm the current SGA Social Sciences representative, and I'm currently the president of the Model United Nations Club here on campus, so I've worked extensively with student orgs, and I'm currently working on passing 2 or 3 through the Social Sciences Division currently in the process with student development. Eliza Baller, if you could stand, please. I'm going to point you out here. Come on, guys, let's clap. There we go. She has done work with Coram Deo and the Honors College Association. She will be the executive vice president. Being a hardcore INFJ, she will love to keep the cabinet in line. Colin O'Grady. He's also done work with the Honors College Association and is looking forward to being the academic affairs vice president working within Honors College. He's picked up a lot of knowledge about how higher education is run and developing that, and he would love to implement that for you guys in order to make your education better. Jeremiah Strickler is unfortunately unable to be here tonight due to his high level of involvement within the music division, as he is the SGA music rep, and he is currently in chorale as well. He has a real heart for people, and he would do an amazing job with student life and working with the DOC. I've talked with him on his faith values, and it's just a wonderful conversation that will go for hours because you want it to. And Michelle, if you could stand, please. Thank you. For marketing and communication, while it's a new position and it could go many directions, her mom has done extensive work in PR, so you could say that she was bred for the position, in fact. But she would love to do work with communicating and bridging the gap between students and SGA. And Juan. Having been the Bowman rep back 2 years ago when we still had Residence Hall representatives, he did extensive work in redoing the SGA, eliminating the Senate, and a lot of other improvements. He's financing accounting double major, and he has extensive background in budgeting. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much for your time, both of you. Since Tim started the... We all need some McConn every once in a while. Since Tim started the opening remarks, we're going to let Caleb address the first question. Just to go over some of the rules for the debate portion, we will have 5 minutes per person, and then that will alternate by questions. So Caleb will take the first question, Tim will start off the second one, and then we'll alternate from there. The candidate who spoke first will get a 30-second rebuttal after the second candidate takes their 5 minutes, if they so choose. So you do have the option of waiving that 30-second rebuttal if you would like. So we are going to get started on the questions now. And once again, Caleb, you're going to have your 5 minutes to start this one. How do you see the SGA presidency as a service to the IWU student body?
Well, personally, I believe that the student body president should embody the character of a servant, much like Christ did, in serving the student body. I see the president as a guiding force, a figure who will oversee the functions of SGA in order to bridge the gap from communication between the students to SGA, to the administration, but also from administration to SGA and the students. There needs to be a higher percentage of the student body actually aware of what SGA is doing, who's in SGA, and what it plans to accomplish. Also, I spent most of my time within the Social Sciences division, unifying the division and all the majors within it, promoting community, and I've also had the pleasure of serving the leadership of Model United Nations this year. Having an extensive background in student organizations is a key factor, as it's one of the most critical aspects of our community. There's so many opportunities here on campus to become involved and to make it better, and we need to utilize those more. Student concerns, both the expressed and the implied, need to be addressed. And the president needs to gather these by actually ingratiating himself within the student body and getting those concerns directly from them. He needs to piece together those concerns expressed to him into a big picture so that he can better address all of the ones, both the ones administrators want us to handle, as well as the ones the students want administrators to handle. And finally, we want to support initiatives that support retention rate, promote mentoring programs, and various other means. But this has to be done by initiatives not only thought of by the student body president, but by the students who bring ideas to him. In order to be an effective student body president, I believe that students' ideas are one of the most critical factors. If we are truly to represent the student body, then we need to take their ideas and give them credit for coming up with them instead of just saying, oh, SGA dealt with it. That way, they'll keep coming back and wanting to improve the community further. And that's it.
All right, and now Mr. Scurlock for your 5 minutes.
Thanks. So Caleb touched a little bit on one function of SGA, which is to represent the student body, listening to students in various different ways. So this semester, Caleb was actually able to work with a committee, an ad hoc of students within SGA to conduct a foreign language survey, which we were able to, I guess, sort of toll or gauge student voice. And then also one thing that we're hoping to do towards the latter end of this semester to implement in the fall is actually to create a VP for marketing and communication position. That's something new, or that's going to be something new to SGA this upcoming year. This is the current cabinet, the cabinet that I inherited, unfortunately didn't have a cabinet position dedicated to bridge that gap, or to singularly, I guess, be dedicated to bridging that gap. But one other function of the student body president is to serve also on students' behalf. The average student who is involved across campus simply cannot be educated about everything that goes on in SGA. So part of what you vote for is the president who will serve the students the best, using his or her discretion. Something that I've really been passionate about doing this year is serving students. I guess using one example, this past fall, incoming freshmen were opted into Textbook Butler, a really, really helpful service that's sort of coordinated by Tree of Life, but they were opted in rather than choosing to opt in. So plenty of students voiced concern related to that, saying that something needed to change, but there wasn't a solution posed. So I had the opportunity to work with administration, work with faculty, work with a group of heads of offices across campus to address the issue. While I didn't necessarily have direction in what to speak directly into, we were able to come up with a creative solution while still offering the best possible situation for students. So this upcoming year, rather than being opted in or opted out, students will choose during the registration process, when they're choosing their housing, when they're choosing their meal plans, whether or not to join Textbook Butler. That wasn't necessarily something communicated by students, but it was something that I was able to bring based on conversations, based on a general awareness. So in short, we don't want to be intrusive, we want to be inclusive. Our faith as a cabinet motivates us in different ways. So our slogan this year, one body, one voice, one mission, was inspired, as I said, by Dr. Wright's inauguration speech last year. He talked about having a vision for a unified campus under the one goal of glorifying God in all that we do. So when we are acting as liaisons between students and administrators, really what we are hoping to do is make communication better, contribute to campus-wide integration of academic, social, and spiritual life, and overall get everyone on the same page with the same mission.
All right, and then Mr. Bowers, if you would like to use your 30-second rebuttal.
Actually would. I was just curious, you said that changing textbook butler wasn't something directly expressed by students, but I remember seeing about 100 to 400 Facebook posts in all the class pages directly expressing anger against the textbook butler thing. I was just curious about that.
Could I give a response?
Yes.
Sorry, I guess to clarify, what I was trying to say is that while students did express concern, and it was very much apparent, there was no direction or no solution that was coupled with that concern. So it was my responsibility and the cabinet's responsibility this year to give sort of a solution to that concern, while it wasn't necessarily given by the student body. Sorry, I didn't mean to be confusing.
All right, thank you both very much for that. Question number 2, we will have Mr. Scurlock start this one. In terms of student involvement, how will you give students the opportunity to enhance their academic experience at IWU during your administration?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. So we are an academic institution, a university, and I believe that our academic endeavors can be one of the primary ways which we serve and honor God. The pursuit of truth is central to the Christian faith, and as a medium-sized liberal arts university, there are limitations there are limitations on course offerings, etc. So although there are ways that we can contribute to the academic experience of students in classes here through language offerings and the freshman course that's been reconceptualized, student government can make the biggest difference by how we mobilize extracurricular academic opportunities. So this past semester, and this semester included, and something we're hoping to do next year, is to continue this forum series. So Dave and I have already organized a couple of panel discussions on media and sexuality, and in the coming month, we hope to do one on science and faith, which I think I mentioned during the introduction. But we want to expand those to be monthly events next year. I would also like to offer more places where students doing research or projects with professors or independently could present what they are doing to other students. I will begin applying to graduate schools in the next few months, and I understand how important it is for students to begin working outside of the class. I actually just had a meeting with Dr. Patton Gale, the Associate Provost of the university, to talk about research and opportunities that are currently available for students. And currently there's an incentive program that's offered to faculty that publish scholarly articles or books, etc., and extending that to students to encourage scholarly research, to encourage students to seek publication. But I understand how important it is for students to be working outside of class, whether it is writing, creating art, doing research, starting businesses, or anything else. We want to set up a support structure for the efforts students already are making so your time here can be optimized. In recent conversations with administrators, I've been discussing, in addition to the incentive program that's currently offered, additional ways that we can get students connected with faculty that are currently engaging in research. Currently, there's not a system or a database that's working with faculty and I guess gauging where they're at within their specific research interests and endeavors. So I'm really passionate about continuing to work with Dr. Patton Gale, the new provost, Dr. Sproul, on making those opportunities more readily available for students. We've discussed a lot of ideas, and if we were elected, we would open up discussion boards on Facebook where other students could contribute ideas to the forum series to continue to discuss these sort of pertinent cultural issues like sexuality, like media, like science and faith. But honestly, I'm really excited about all of it because we can enhance the student experience and work together on initiatives that truly integrate all three parts of campus life, sort of going back to Dr. Wright's structural vision for the university. So working with academics to include them in things that residence life is doing, that the Office of Student Development is doing, and to likewise include academic affairs within the progress that the DOC is making. One thing that's currently being discussed within the General Education Committee is sort of curricularizing the experience across the university. So getting everyone on the same page and reaching after the same goals of ultimately better preparing and best preparing students. So that's all I have really related to academic life and an academic experience here. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Bowers.
Well, one of the primary things we would like to do is to create a robust community within each major, especially one that reinforces an alumni network. Within the International Relations major, which falls under the Social Sciences division, we have a very well filled out Facebook group. It has alumni from years in the past, and any undergrad student can post in there any questions concerning grad school, jobs, interviews, anything, and by the end of a couple hours, they'll have 4 or 5 responses helping them, building them up, telling them go here, offering to spend the night staying there. So there is a community if we can build it and work together to build it. I believe there should be a certain level of expectation of what the student divisional reps are doing. One of the things that I thought was simply because my major's small was that I was known only because of that. However, as I'm going around campaigning and asking people if they know that they have divisional reps and telling them who they are, I received the answer multiple times, I know we have divisional reps because I know you're the social science student rep, but I don't know who my rep is. And I just think it's sad, and it paints a rather bleak picture if SGA can't fulfill its most basic function of representing the student's voice. Also, to go along with that, the career fairs, they're important. And there is a difference between academic and professional development. Academic development will end for most students after they graduate here. Most won't go on to grad school. But professional development, striving toward entering the career path you are choosing, that works for everyone. We need it. And job fairs and career fairs will help students get in contact with those people who can help them along that path. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Scurlock, 30 seconds if you'd like it.
Awesome. Just, I guess, to give a little bit of history on our current structure, in the past, I think, as Caleb mentioned, pulled our representatives from residence areas, which was incredibly unsuccessful. So Aaron Agello, last year's student body president, we were able to work together to create this new system, reorient ourselves around academics, and thus now we have an assembly near capacity. We have an assembly that's working actively on issues within ad hocs that Caleb's had the opportunity to be a part of, that several of us in the assembly have had the opportunity to be a part of. So while it's not currently being fully utilized, there are steps that we can take next year inevitably.
All right, thank you both very much for that. Question number 3, and this will start with Mr. Bowers. What are some specific short-term goals you wish to see implemented through your term next year?
Well, one of the things we want to see is SGA opened up more to the students. And there are many ways to do that, but one thing would be to have an SGA open house once a week where student reps are constantly available to discuss things with any students who might be by. We've done that somewhat this year, but it's been once or twice a semester instead of every week. And I think that would greatly increase the number of students aware of SGA. Another thing, student reps should develop a great relationship with all of the professors within their divisions. I work in the social sciences division as a student worker. I see every professor every day, and it has given me a great view of what they want to do with the division and in helping students learn of that view. Furthermore, the cabinet should form an actual bridge between administration and the students. It needs to go both ways. We can't just take the students' opinions and throw them on administration. We also have to take administration's opinions and views and actions and inform the students about them. It doesn't work unless it goes both ways. Finally, SGA needs to promote the student orgs more. There's this entire network of students throughout every major, everything, and they're just out there on their own. We need to better support them and promote more elements of community within them. For instance, Doulos, it's a student organization that's cross-divisional. It goes past multiple divisions, multiple majors are involved in it, and if we could promote that more, there would be more community throughout the university. We need to take pride and promote these organizations as they're fighting social injustices across the world, such as human trafficking. Also, there are major specific student orgs, such as the Psychology Club. They should also be heavily invested in because they promote the individual majors. We need to increase in retention rate instead of students continually flopping majors because they take a class, don't like it, didn't meet any professors, so they don't know if they actually like it or not at the upper division level where it actually gets interesting. And promoting those clubs would help ensure that and increase the retention rate. Finally, SGA should be more than just a bank account for the student orgs. I basically only go to SGA for Model United Nations when we need money, and sometimes I even have to bypass that and go to Jessica Small directly. So why don't we invest in the student orgs, have the division reps work with the student orgs, have the student orgs more involved in the student orgs, and actually members and officers of them regularly attending them, checking up with them, and seeing how they're doing. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowers. Mr. Scurlock, your 5 minutes.
Yeah, going along the same lines as short-term goals. The first short-term goal is one that is already in the process of happening, and that's related to new student orientation. We have worked hard this year to get NSO to extend it to a week instead of 3 days, which we're somewhat familiar with given recent years. We are doing this with the hope that we can plug students in better earlier in their time at school. I had a friend freshman year that I was talking to, and she was saying that she really didn't like the group of friends that she had to hang out with until the end of her first year. I think that's the experience too many students have, and I think it's a problem that can be solved this upcoming year as freshmen sort of transition to Indiana Wesleyan. And one thing related to student organizations which I've really, I've been excited to have the opportunity to work with is the Student Organizations Fair. So typically, I think there are a couple of student org presidents in the crowd. Typically, it's been, I think, between 2 and 3 weeks into the semester. And one thing that I've been working with the NSO coordinating team to do is to move that actually during NSO. So this upcoming year, all of the student organization presidents, or those that are able to make the trip back to campus, they're going to be a part of that NSO weekend, or week rather. So rather than a week passing, 2 weeks passing, 3 weeks passing, and students already being too bogged down by coursework and other scheduling conflicts, they'll actually have the opportunity during NSO to get plugged in with these specific interest-related clubs like PRSSA and Model UN and Doulos and things like that. So we're really, really excited about that opportunity. So the implementation will come fall. Regardless of who is elected, that's something that's going to happen. The NSO coordinating team is doing, given some of these concerns that Caleb just mentioned. Another short-term goal is offering additional chapel credit opportunities. We are excited as a cabinet about the prospect of worshiping together as a student body, and that's what's happening next year for chapel. The current form of chapel makeups is through listening to old chapel messages through iTunes, and although we think that option is great and can be helpful in some situations, we think the goal of making up chapels is to encourage communal worship. So that's why right now, the current VPAA and VPSL, Taryn Coates and Emily Smith, and myself are working on sort of a preliminary proposal to offer different chapel credit opportunities for the broader student body. So things like Coram Deo, things like Cultivate Adoration, Cultivate Prayer that SAC sponsors, and then our forum series that's aimed at a more, I guess, mindful worship. Those things we're also hoping to be, I guess, included within additional chapel credit opportunities. And again, that's something that we're working on right now, but as far as implementation and follow through, that's gonna come in the fall if elected. Long term, we want to contribute more to the integration of campus life. Our whole cabinet is made up of individuals who come from different backgrounds, campus ministries, student organizations, majors, divisions, what have you. And it's really, really exciting to see the opportunity to really bridge that voice across campus in a really sort of comprehensive way. So we're not all, I guess, lumped into one category of campus life. We're spread out across the campus. I don't think we have two of the same people majoring in one thing. Phil's Christian ministries, Dave is writing, Eliza is leadership, Melissa is mathematics and business administration, and Jake is marketing. I'm studying international relations. And we're really excited about that opportunity, especially given the creation of this new VP for marketing and communication position. Something that unfortunately SGA wasn't able to capitalize on this year is that gap between SGA, which will be hopefully proposed to the Assembly within the next couple of weeks, just as we formalize some of the details. It'll really be comprehensive in its description and address this gap in communication. So that's another short-term goal and long-term goal as well. But that's all I have for that question.
All right, thank you very much, Caleb. If you would like a 30-second rebuttal.
Actually, I'm good this time. Thanks, though.
All right, sounds great. We are moving on to question 6 as they close us in and as sirens are going off, but we'll be all right. Which areas of IWU's residential campus do you feel can be enhanced, and how do you plan on improving them? And this will start with Mr. Scurlock.
Starting with me. Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, the chocolate milk was just too good. As far as the residential campus, there are a couple of things that I was able to talk about in the presentation and throughout so far that I think is really integral to the student experience here. And that goes back to our vision of one and Dr. Wright's structural vision for one. So currently we have different parts of campus. We have different entities, different offices. The three primary being student development, academic affairs, and the DOC, the Dean of the Chapel's office. And the really unfortunate thing in the current structure and in the current, I guess, time is that these offices, these groups, they really struggle to work alongside of one another in their different initiatives. So one thing that I guess I've been really passionate about this year is bridging some of that gap. So in our proposal to Academic Affairs Council for the Extended New Student Orientation, we were able to work collectively, not only with student development, but also with academic affairs and the DOC to talk about the importance of a comprehensive approach, a comprehensive student experience, a student experience that isn't, I guess, singularized to the residence halls, but can be transcendent almost, that can take place at Macon, in the classroom, in a campus job, whatever it may be. So as far as like one issue that I really feel can be enhanced, it's that integration within this specific residential campus, and that's really getting at the heart of our concern as a cabinet. We just want to reconcile these three primary groups together and work alongside of them in the different things that they're doing. And there are other things, I guess, related to the residential campus, which I can talk on here in a little bit in latter sections, but very broadly and related to our vision, that's what we hope to do. So thanks, Jeremy.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scurlock. Mr. Bowers, your 5 minutes begins now.
Well, one of the things we want to do is to promote residential hall community. As such, my entire cabinet will be spread throughout the various dorms on campus, actively participating within the various events held by them. Furthermore, with the permission of student development, we'd like to put up a poster in each dorm lobby containing that month's agenda for SGA so that the student body's actually aware of what's going on and happening. And finally, I'd like to reinforce that opening up the SGA office to all students, having an open door policy, if I may, and make sure that they don't feel uncomfortable approaching the office. Right now, students don't go in there much, and I would love to see that opened up. It may say SGA above the door, but it's an office elected for and empowered by the students, and we want to see them use it as such. That's all.
All right, Mr. Scurlock, 30 seconds.
Yeah, just a quick response, and I'm not trying to, I guess, nitpick, but the past 2 weeks, we've actually had posters across campus introducing the SGA office to the student body with their specific office hours. It's sort of within our branding, lots of pinks, blues, greens. And it's something that we've opened up this year. Like I said, this VP for Marketing and Communication can hopefully more, I guess, fully address some of these communication issues, but there are posters scattered across campus, and people are more than willing to stop by anytime throughout the day.
If I may?
Yes.
Do these posters actually contain an agenda of any sorts on them to inform the student body?
No. I was just speaking specifically into the office hours and opening up the office for student use. It lists our working hours. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just asking.
Sorry.
All right. Next question, and we will start with Mr. Bowers on this one. Since there have been several hot topic issues discussed this past year through the forums, what specific topics would you like to address next year with the student body?
Well, one of the things that was actually written on my table in the hallway was that we'd like to see current events discussed, and not just from one angle, but from multiple angles, like Ukraine, where there are government protests going on right now in its capital, Kiev, or Syria, where actually one of our intercultural studies professors, Dr. Norm, has actually been to Syria and shaken the current leader's hand, and he loves to tell students about that story. It's a fascinating one. But another thing that can be done with that, we can partner with student orgs to help them combat social injustices. For instance, ISA, or the International Students Association, contains a lot of the intercultural, the different cultures represented in our school. As such, they can teach us so much about going across into various countries. Doulos helps fight social injustices and combat human trafficking, and Model UN helps instruct its members on the political and economic things concerning the various current events. And I think that we should address them not just in forums, but also across campus as a part of daily life. Yeah. To you.
All right, Mr. Scurlock, your 5 minutes.
Yeah. So this is a topic that's pretty near to my heart. Dave and I actually pushed for these panel discussions this past year serving on the cabinet, but we never were able to actually make it work. But this year, Dave and I co-organized the 2 forum discussions thus far together, and he really made a commitment to making them happen in his position as Alpha Chi president. That said, we want to make them more regular than they have been this year. Instead of forums once or twice a semester, we want to make them monthly. As we were organizing these panels, Dave and I realized the potential of these discussions to bring students together from all different disciplines. This year we've covered media and sexuality, as I mentioned, because both are sort of important within our current contemporary context within the church. And next month we hope to have a discussion, as I mentioned, on science and faith. And next year we'd like to continue talking about things like politics and economics and reconciliation and race relations and denominational tensions and interfaith dialogue as well, just to name a few. But these are things that are really important to the student body. This past semester, or this past summer, rather, I had the opportunity to study abroad and go to England for about 6 weeks. And studying there, I was able to learn the importance in honoring those with different perspectives. It's something that I think students really struggle to do here. I at least did during my first 2 years, honor those with different perspectives, different beliefs than myself. But I think these forums, sort of addressing these really controversial issues, they can, I guess, provide us with a better sense of honor for those that think a little bit differently. And like I said, it's just been a start this year with the media and the sexuality forum. But I think with involving faculty, involving RDs, administrators, anyone with expertise specific to a topic, we as a community are really going to be able to better understand some of these issues and better prepare ourselves for life after Indiana Wesleyan, for a life of being the church out in the world. So for that, I'm really excited this next year, if elected, to work with Dave, continue working with Dave to coordinate those forums, and to also obviously get suggestions from the broader student body in SGA as a whole. That's something that's sort of been a missing piece this year, but I really hope to address it next.
All right, Mr. Bowers, would you like your 30-second rebuttal?
I'm good, thanks, though.
All right. So we are going to go to our last question for this segment. How do you plan to create a lasting legacy at IWU that extends beyond just your term as president? And Mr. Scurlock, we'll start this one.
Great. One thing that we've already done thus far is restructure student government. As I said a little bit ago, student government in the past, it was reoriented around this sort of outdated system of residence halls. And this year we were actually able to implement a system that's near capacity, that's representing students from all academic divisions across the College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Nursing. It's been a really, really great experience. But I think moving forward, it's not something that we're really going to be able to tell right away. As far as creating a lasting legacy here, I don't think it's going to come at the end of the year or a year from now or 2 years. It's going to come when we all meet up again at the 20, 30, 40-year reunions, not old. That's not what I meant to say. But when we all meet up, 30, 40 years from now, and we're in Lucky Arena at some banquet dinner, and we're talking about the experiences that we had here collectively, when we talk about the community, and when we talk about how some of these things factored into our experience, things like the forums, maybe something as petty as the size of wings at Wings and Tots, things that really, I guess, work to make our student experience here better, that ultimately affected our life afterwards. That's really, I guess, the idea of a legacy. And really, I'm I'm just a small piece. The cabinet, the assembly, those are representing student voice. They're the ones that are really making a difference and affecting change across the university and coming up with creative solutions to address certain issues, ultimately creating a better student experience. So I'm really sorry for saying 30, 40 years old. I didn't mean to say that, but thank you so much for letting me answer that.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Scurlock. Mr. Bowers.
Well, to me, legacy is not history. Legacy is determined by those whom we leave behind to carry on improving from where we left off. If we were concerned about how we were going to be remembered, then we would have already failed. I believe that a legacy is formed by being able to look back upon one's years at IWU and be able to say, it may not be perfect, but it's better when I graduated than when I first registered. Sometimes it's not about furthering your own initiative, but rather furthering the initiative you believe has the most potential. SGA doesn't need to be the most powerful student-run organization on campus. It needs to work alongside Student Alumni Association, SAC, and others in order to craft a better IWU as a whole. SGA's role is to be the voice of the student body, to take the students' hopes and dreams and implement them to represent our student body. Our legacy does not end when we graduate. Our legacy will never end so long as students are here who are willing to work together to improve it. And that's it.
All right, Mr. Scurlock, if you would like your 30-second
Could
rebuttal.
I just give him a hug before this next part
That's
starts?
fine with me, yeah.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, and because we have a little bit of extra time right now, we are going to do 2 minutes of closing remarks. And I'm informed that Caleb, Mr. Bowers, you will start these.
Excellent.
So 2 minutes.
Well, I believe my table in the hallway actually sums up what we stand for. We want students to be more involved. Obviously, we can't fulfill every student's dream. It's just not feasible. There's over 2,000 of you guys. But we can filter as many of those as we can that we can push through to administrators and get them to approve. And that is our primary purpose. Obviously, there are others taking administrators' own views and letting the students know about them, letting them know about their actions, but we want the students more involved, a more open SGA for all. Thanks.
And Mr. Scurlock, your 2 minutes.
How can I beat that? Yeah, so it's really been a blessing to serve throughout the fall and so far this semester in the role of student body president. And I guess continuing into next year, I'm really hoping to continue to bring up conversations and to address this issue of campus reconciliation, bringing the 3 campus offices together in one vision and one mission for the university, and doing whatever we can to come alongside of them. So if I were to reiterate anything tonight, that's really what we're passionate about. That's where our heart is. It's doing whatever we can to help others work together, help students come alongside these different offices, help faculty work with RDs and RDs with the DOC. We really just want to reconcile its integrative experience here. And I think that sort of summates our mission and our vision as a whole. So thank you.
All right, thank you both. We are now moving to the last section of this presidential debate. As you see, we have an open microphone right here, and we will be taking questions from anyone in attendance. You can direct it at either or both candidates. And now the cabinet members that each presidential candidate has chosen can come up on stage, and they will be assisting in this open mic section. So if you have a question or have something in the back of your mind, you can go ahead and step to the microphone and start the line down the middle here, and it'll be fun. Anyone.
Jeremy, you have some really good jokes if you want to hold us over in the time.
All right, have our first one.
Yes.
Be thinking of more.
Is this on? Okay. This is for both candidates. I have a couple questions. I don't know if you want me to just do one and sit down and listen to somebody else, but how do you plan to balance vision and your expectations against due process and other obstacles that will arise during your leadership?
So vision versus obstacles. And Mr. Bowers, if you would like to start.
I'd love to. Well, one of the things that is a part of just our regular job is simply to, as you said, address those things. And we run into obstacles all the time. The school has a very nice bureaucracy that is sometimes difficult to push things through. To give an example of a committee I was on with the Foreign Language Committee, we actually had to get a survey approved in order to make it more official. And we had to do it in one day by the Institutional Research Board, which professors who teach research classes here will say if you started in October, November of next year would be a good time to expect it to be done. And we pushed it through in one day. Now, obviously that can't always happen, but at the same time, this year some of the reps with various ones, such as especially the Foreign Language Committee, has broken every record on passing things through the school bureaucracy. Once for a Model United Nations conference, IT was unfortunately unable to fix something because apparently there are 4 ITs at the school, and my division chair did not know which IT to go to. So my conference wasn't approved the day before, and my officers and I were literally running around with note cards getting signatures so that from the people who needed to approve it and going on to the next person so that we could actually go to conference the next day. And I could give hypothetical ones, but I figured, yeah, practical would be better.
Mr. Scurlock?
Yeah, balance is a really, really good question. One thing that SGA has really struggled to do in the past is related to follow through. So we come up with these really, really great ideas at the beginning of the semester and during training or the first week of the year. And we think of solutions and we make a little bit of headway, but then we run into some roadblock, right? And then we just stop altogether. And I think rather than stopping with those roadblocks, we push through. We push through the fall, we push through the spring, and then maybe by the end of the semester, in the spring, we can accomplish some of these goals and objectives that we set out for ourselves. As far as what good balance looks like, I think I've really been able to get good context this year in what is realistic. And with our new structure, we've been able to do more than we ever would have thought of, related to Theology 1, extending new student orientation, our cuisine team, foreign language, which Caleb mentioned. And with our new structure, those within the assembly can bring up specific issues and work towards coming up with a solution themselves, rather than, I think, in the structure that you were a part of my freshman year, your sophomore year, we weren't able to do that. It was entirely dictated by the cabinet. And that's what's really, really effective this year, is that individual senators, now student representatives, can work toward coming up with solutions to real problems. So if that provides a little bit of an answer.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, I have 2 questions. First one for both of you, and then the second one just for Tim. First one is, you guys say that you want to hear the student's voice, and Tim, you said that it was through surveys. However, the only survey was the language survey that Caleb pushed through this year. So yes, the divisional reps are going to be helping, we can go to them with ideas, but how can you get your finger on what we're feeling through the things that you're pushing forward? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I just touched on it during some of the questions that Jeremy asked. But that's sort of a hole that we recognized this year in the cabinet structure that I came in with. So this upcoming year, there's actually going to be a new cabinet position with marketing and communication. And their sort of singular focus is going to be in addressing those issues. So Caleb has done a great job, and we actually hired a social media manager, Catherine Fitch, who's done a great job in voicing some student concern. But really, it takes a cabinet position. It takes someone who's working 15 to 20 hours a week, trying to bridge that gap. And I think it's going to happen. That's how that position is going to be formatted and structured. So I think that's going to be the answer to your question as far as addressing this disconnect.
Can I go back on that?
Dave, just one thing to add. Sorry.
Yeah, just
Just another quick thing too. Not only like structurally are we making changes, like both of them have talked about, but part of it too. I mean, part of the reason why I joined like this cabinet, why I was excited to join this cabinet, is because every person on the cabinet is from like very different areas of the school and has been really involved in different areas of the school. And so not only do we have, Eliza, who's been involved in like the ministry teams or like ministry groups on the campus, Phil, who's in like chorale and SGA and the Honors College and all these different things, and Jake, who's at McCon, and I could go on for everyone, but but part of it too is just having a cabinet and a student government that's representative of the student body, not a group that's like separate and trying to keep our hand on the pulse, but a group that's actually part of that pulse and is in constant contact with all different sides of campus. And so that's one of the reasons why I think this team is really exciting for me, at least.
Can I respond to that before Caleb goes? Really quickly? Okay.
Yes.
So you said, the VP position. Do you have any concrete examples about how you plan to implement that? Because yes, it's a good idea, like they're gonna do marketing, but do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, Caleb was responsible for the survey that was conducted through his specific ad hoc. And one thing that this position is going to specifically work towards is coming alongside these specific ad hoc committees, cabinet members, and addressing issues of student concern. So say, we want to find out more about Baldwin Food Service, and there's a committee that wants to start that within our assembly. Rather than them coming up with a solution to gauge the student body, that cabinet position specifically is going to work toward gauging the student body. So it's not going to have to be this sort of ambiguous, immeasurable concern, but it's going to be sort of, I guess, one person is going to be dedicated to solving that on a daily basis. In addition to things like social media, general marketing. Right now we're hiring out graphic design, and it's sort of this weird responsibility that doesn't fit within any one cabinet position. So oftentimes it's myself or the executive assistant or just someone in the assembly, and no one's familiar with the process. This person, the VP for Marketing and Communication, they're going to be entirely aware, they're going to be competent in sort of the processes related to getting things printed and communicating through social media, et cetera. So if that answers.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to answer half of it, and then Caleb's going to continue. One of the approaches we want to work with are, the surveys and passing out questions, even sending emails if we want to do that. Sometimes it doesn't work because as students, it can be incredibly annoying. We can even say with daily developments, many of us read them, most of us probably don't. So one of the actual concrete approaches we want to do is, the reasons for focus for student organizations is if you're interested in a student org or any activity on campus, you will join it. It's easier to collect people's opinions of sort of what's going on in that area and then voice that to the student reps or directly even to me if I was working under, with the student rep, if we're elected, working with them. So the surveys are just one means of acquiring information, but a lot of us do not go out of our way to actually voice our opinions unless we're actually involved with individuals that share common goals and common interests as we do. Now, we want to use social media, but we also want to do with things that engage students academically and even in rest life. The things we try sometimes to separate academic life from resident life, but academics are important to us, at least to the majority, if we're interested in that, at least I would hope so. And we have another approach additional to that. I'll just let Caleb answer that part that he knows more about.
Well, one of the ways, other than getting divisional reps out among the people more, is actually just through your mobile phone with an app. Currently, my campaign actually has an app brought to us by the Dembski Group, and there's a founder over there. But what if you had an app with a survey, say, to express any concerns, ideas you may have for your division or as campus across a whole, and you could simply email it in to SGA from a simple app on your phone. You wouldn't have to go through the email process, and it would immediately go to a special email where the VP of Marketing and Communication would filter through them and get the viable ones immediately to the cabinet and assembly.
Okay. Okay, so my other question, this is kind of an awkward question, and that's why I'm asking to clear it up. There are rumors, Tim, that you plagiarized your letters to the editor. Is that true? And if so, why? sorry.
That's not true.
Okay. That's why
I
I'm
don't-
clearing the issue up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I worked on it sort of collectively with my cabinet as far as things that were related to the vision, related to some of our goals. I was obviously able to speak into specific things that we did this year. But all of it was very specific to SGA and our cabinet vision. So I'm not sure how it could be plagiarized.
I think it was more that someone else wrote it for you, I guess, more.
No, I mean, yeah.
That's why I'm asking, just to clear it up. Just
Yeah.
issues like that.
Just to, like, if you want, like, specifically to know exactly what it looked like, I was one of the main people that Tim worked with on this last letter to the editor that we did. And Tim wrote the letter and sent it to me and asked if I had any advice on it. I wrote up some responses to it. I filled out some sections and said we should look at this. And then we actually met for about 2 to 3 hours, sat down together, put it on a Google Doc, and kind of went through and discussed which things should be phrased how. So that's specifically how we did it.
Yeah,
if that
I just
helps.
wanted to clear up
Yeah,
his
yeah,
character.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I guess Jeremy could,
That's
I guess, take questions on specific editorial ethics. I mean, just if anyone is interested in talking to someone about like what is and isn't appropriate for writing a letter to the editor. I'm
Yeah.
studying public relations. I'm in a news writing class right now.
That's fine. I was just wondering.
Yeah. I'm sorry for that rumor that's circulating.
That's why I cleared it up.
Yeah, thank you.
This is for both of you. There's been, I've heard complaints about how Marion says that IWU is not involved enough in the community, so what would you do to address that?
We'll start with Mr. Bowers.
Well, while I'm not a Marion businessman, I do happen to have quite a few friends that live in the community, and to be honest, I'm not an expert on it. I'm not going to try to bluff my way through this. I'm just simply going to say that I would be submitting it to themselves for advice, and in fact, the person that I'm hoping to get as assembly chair happens to be a Marion businessman. His family has lots of connections with it, and hopefully working through them and other businessmen that I've been able to meet, such as Mark Brand, which both of us are in the same major with, we can help the community through that.
Mr.
Yeah.
Scurlock?
Yeah, I guess related specifically to the community, one thing that I've been really intentional about through this NSO coordinating process is involving the community of Marion. So they've asked for student perspective quite a bit on different initiatives to include within the week, and one is a day of service. So oftentimes students don't have the opportunity to connect with a nonprofit or a ministry or a church. So one day, actually, during new student orientation, and I hope I'm actually allowed to say this, there's going to be a day where students go out collectively, all incoming freshmen, in addition to those teaching the first year course, professors, and the peer educators. They're going to go out collectively into the community and give back. Additionally, there are going to be things sort of incorporated within that first week to bridge the gap. So typically we've had, Taste of Marion, right? Where the community comes to campus. But one thing that we're in discussion about right now is taking students to the community. There's a stereotype that obviously is sort of often coupled with Marion, high crime rates, violence. It's just not the best area. And that sort of originates when you first set foot on campus. It originates from upperclassmen that have just perpetuated this stereotype. So during NSO, we're hoping to get students out in the community, not the community on campus. So hopefully through some sort of like scavenger hunt, or they're still thinking about different programmatic things to do. But those are just a couple of things I hope to do next year.
Okay, sorry. So how can students best help us? That's a great question, actually. Exciting to answer. Yeah, I mean, a large part of it, I used to be involved with student government. Last year I was the Senate chair. This year I've kind of been working in and out with them some. And one of the things that we hope to be expanding, and we're kind of currently expanding with our with our committee structure is inviting students who are at the university but aren't necessarily involved in SGA to come and sit in on committees and give specific opinions about things. We've opened up those specific committees so students can join like the food committee or different committees and sit there and give specific opinions on stuff. So that would be a big way. I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, and that's really the biggest thing. So if you remember the old structure, students had the opportunity to come hear what SGA was doing, maybe voice a concern, but they really didn't have much of an opportunity to work alongside SGA in these specific ad hocs and addressing concerns. So right now, I believe we have one ad hoc working to do a benefit concert, giving back to Marian nonprofits. I'm forgetting Phil is involved on that committee, and there's one of our freshman representatives, Caleb, yes. And he's working with other freshman students to coordinate this benefit concert. And that's just something that wasn't possible in our old structure. And continuing to build upon that, I think next year is going to be great in getting students involved to come up with creative solutions to some of these problems. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Mr. Bowers?
Well, one of the things that I think needs mentioned right away is, first of all, asking questions, as many of you are now online. But also, we can't accomplish anything without students backing us. For instance, the foreign language survey, the only reason it had any impact and that we were able to show Dr. Wright the results and start working towards change that he agreed with was because we had over 800 students take it. That's over a third of the student body here on campus. If we didn't have that backing and support, nothing would have happened. If we had had half of that, odds are nothing would have changed. So the best thing that the student body can do is to join their fellow peers, because SGA is not above the student body. We're in it, and we need to be spread throughout it. The student body as a whole needs to come together and back SGA up on events that are important to them. Showing up to SGA events, giving their signatures, and just general support, talking, word of mouth, that is the best thing that students can do for their school.
All right. Thank you very much for that question. For the sake of respecting everyone's time, we're going to just go through the rest of the questions in line, and then we'll end up there.
Hello, both of you.
It's a bit short, Brandon.
How do I?
You can just talk loud.
Well, I'll give up on that. I would actually like to revisit the issue on ingratiating IWU to Marion's community.
Yeah.
I was looking at your handout, and there's one specific issue that says expanding points to Marion community businesses.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious about the viability of that. Economic professors and business professors very heavily criticize the point system, and I think that there's not really that much incentive for Marion businesses to actually take up this system.
Yeah.
Taste of Marion is a really good event because it shows people on campus where they can go and like what restaurants they can eat at. But I really don't think that restaurants are necessarily going to be incentivized towards foregoing profits for different students coming in for purchasing food, with loud college students coming in at all times, and not very many restaurants here or businesses in general necessarily support the capacity for that as well.
Yeah,
So I just wondered if you could
definitely.
elaborate on that bit.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that. So the concern, or the idea rather, it came about from sitting at a Marion restaurant. So about, I don't know, Danielle, maybe a month and a half ago, Danielle and one of her friends, Jenna, we were getting dinner at K Bistro, just right down the bypass. And we're just sitting, eating, I think I had a hamburger, I'm not sure. But one of the professors here, Dr. Katie Wampler, brought over this woman, and it was the owner of K Bistro. And she talked to me a little bit, and she talked about how much it would mean to her to have the opportunity to extend those profits, to extend the points to her business. And there are some things that there are obviously obstacles that you have to sort of maneuver around in discussing that, but that's something that administration, they're open to talking about. even toward the latter end of this semester. So there are specifics that I can't speak directly into, just given the sensitive nature of the issue. But Marion businesses are interested. There are some that obviously wouldn't be able to do it given capacity concerns, but I think it would be pretty cool to be able to swipe a meal at K Bistro or to go to Taco Bell at 1 a.m. and get a couple soft tacos with 4 points. But that's just something that we've heard from students, that they're really lacking opportunities to use our points elsewhere on campus. And I know we can use them at the bookstore now, so there's sort of an already set precedent for extending those.
Yeah, fine.
Yes, Brandon.
All right. Well, that is good to hear that they're actually more open than I would have initially expected.
Yeah.
But I'm still very skeptical about the viability of having this be a very heavily marketed promise, because it seems, I guess, sort of very up in the air, and it seems like something that administration itself would have to rely. You'd have to rely a lot on them to qualify.
Yeah.
It's more something that would be an administration policy more so than an actual SGA policy.
Yeah. And so I guess SGA, it's not a government. For those of you who don't know, it's more or less a lobbying group to lobby administration for specific things that we want to see. So foreign language, for instance, has been brought up every year since Dr. Barnes, the guy that the Student Center is named after, since he was president. It's been brought up every single year. But it only came with intense lobbying and sort of petitioning administration to even consider it as a viable options. So while there isn't much viability in currently offering additional foreign language opportunities in term, we were able to pose a creative solution alongside the foreign language ad hoc through summer language options. So I think it is viable, and it's definitely something that we can do given just things that have happened this year. I've been entirely surprised. I think if you were asking me this question last year, I would have said, yes, it's not fair to say that that's something that we can work toward. But ultimately, administrators here, faculty, staff, everyone, they want to make the experience better for students. And if expanding points to the Marion community can enhance the student experience that much more to better retain students, to help them persist through their education, it's something that means something to them as well. It's just constructing that argument. I know you know about persuasion, Brandon. You're great. It's just the angle that you take. So I think you bring up some valid concerns, and we're hoping to, I guess, navigate those as we continue conversation with administration.
May I ask you just one?
Sorry, Jeremy.
I just want to give Caleb a chance to chime in on this if he would like to.
As I said earlier, I am not a Marion businessman, and if I were to bluff my way through it, I would feel as if I were lying to all of you guys. So I'm going to wait until I consult people and then come back with an answer on Facebook or something.
Yeah, Brandon, did you have anything else, though?
Yes, let me see if I can recall it for a second. I appreciate your optimism, and I very much think that IWU should be better integrated with the community. And
Yeah.
as a commuter, someone that's born and raised in Marion, I really
Yeah.
appreciate the efforts that have been put forth. But my final question would be, how would you combat those negative stereotypes that exist? It's not only that a lot of IWU students seem to think that Marion has a very high crime rate and that it's not very a nice place to be in, but it's also that a lot of older residents of IWU, or of older residents of Marion, kind of attribute the economic downturn and the closing of factories and the sudden emergence of IWU. A lot of hatred and animosity is generated there, and I'm not saying that's fair, but that's a very real and tangible thing that I think you have to overcome and kind of address before you could ever try
Definitely.
to have a huge financial agreement with several businesses in the community.
Yeah, so I think it really is going to be a multi-pronged approach. So we're hoping, like I said during NSO, to take students out into the community and get them involved in service and connecting with businesses. But one thing that the Office for Life Calling and Integrative Learning is doing right now, this isn't an SGA initiative by any means, but it's something that Dr. Brandon Hill is working on. They just received a $3 million Lilly grant to offer internship opportunities to really connect students, not only with Indiana businesses, which the grant is given for, but to connect them with with meaningful partners. So that may look like Indiana Wesleyan alumni, that may look like Marian businesses, but I think that economic, that component is obviously central to combating this perception that the reality of Marian has to change before the perception changes, you know? And I think that's something that Dr. Hill and his office are doing a really, really great job at addressing. So from our end, though, we're hoping to get students plugged in sooner, before they have an opportunity to interact with some of us upperclassmen, and really angle in from that way. So obviously that's not a short-term goal we have in changing the overall systemic perception of Marian, but we want to do what we can, hopefully.
Great. I appreciate your optimism. Good luck to both of you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you very much for your question, Caleb. Quick response?
If I may, I think before we go about trying to work out a deal with the Marian community that it has a mutual advantage, because the Marian community views us as having wronged them, we should try to bridge that gap and have reconciliation by going out and helping the Marian community. Let's do something that benefits them while not benefiting us to demonstrate to that and win them back over. And once we've done that, it'll be much easier to address those goals.
Definitely.
All right, next question, and then just for, again, the sake of time, if we can try to keep everything condensed a little bit. Yeah.
So in
Just make it a tweet.
a tweet, or I want 5 sentences or less about, you talk about, Dave, in our philosophy, theology, and film class, how the media policy being pulled back. How are we going to actually allow students to engage in media as a matter of like practical aspects, where we bring like someone like Dr. Horst or Dr. Bounds or Dave Vardaman up to be able to talk to students about that in both a theological and a way we interact with the world? And I want 5 sentences or less from both of you guys.
You heard him. 5 sentences or less.
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief. It's 1. I'm really excited as somebody who hopes to have a future writing in film, or at least being like participating in film in some way, to think about how we approach this as Christians. And I think that one of the things that I'm really excited about doing specifically is basically setting up, very similar to our forum series that we have right now, setting up viewings of certain films that are difficult, you know, to engage in as Christians. And that doesn't mean necessarily R-rated films, but just any films that provide us with insight into our culture, into our faith, into different things like that we can engage with, and then to have organized discussions with afterward. As the vice president of academic affairs, I would make that a really big priority to do.
Good.
So, yes.
And then 5-ish sentences.
You'll win me if you can.
Well, to begin, Dr. Horst actually offers a level 400 class in intercultural studies called Religions of the World, and that's one way to do it. But for SGA specifically, one of the things written on my table was a comparative religions class, and in order to actually bring that out for SGA, why not actually just go through the student orgs, talk about the current events, make this more of a day-to-day thing? A month-to-month is great, but if we make it more part of our daily routine, it'll better equip us as we go out into the world. And if we truly want to be world changers and go throughout the world changing it, then let's know about the religions, the culture, the political, the economic factors, and actually be prepared for it.
All right, thank you very much for your responses.
Both sides have expressed interest in partnering with Residence Life. And as someone who has been in Residence Life for almost 2 years, I am curious, really short, in how, what are some structural ways that you both intend to build relations with Residence Life and let them contribute?
Let's start with Caleb.
Well, one of the things is all of the cabinet will be actively living in the dorms and participating in events. We want to build community not just throughout student orgs, classes, majors, divisions, but also in the residence halls, because that's another huge factor in the IWU community. Also, though, we want to start promoting Res Life events. Let's make sure all the students are aware of it. If they eventually start promoting SGA events, or your RA starts telling you, hey, there's going to be a forum this night, it'd be great if you could go, that'd be awesome. But we want to going back to bridging the gap with the Marion community, we want to bridge the gap with Res Life by helping Res Life first and winning them back. And once we've won Res Life over, then we can do a mutual partnership.
And Tim?
Something SGA did a few years ago was actually giving sort of an informational seminar or session during SALT training. So I think the disconnect and the broken relationship between Residence Life and SGA is often due to misunderstanding. We both have these sort of stereotypes of one another, right? And I think one really helpful thing, really it can just be to introduce ourselves for Residence Life, to give a bit of context to what they're working towards, some of their objectives and goals at the beginning of the year. And that's something that's happened in previous years. I think it happened under Corey Sprunger, who was the student body president, I believe, 4 years ago. But we've just lost that. And I don't know what happened, but it's something I'm hoping to address as I look through some of these old documents and see that working relationship that was once there, especially given our reorientation around academics. This is something that's going to have to obviously be a priority going forward. And we've started to do a little bit of this in our forum series, so bringing Dr. Rob Thompson to speak specifically into the perspective of Residence Life at our last forum. So he was able to give really good context to some of the issues that RDs, RAs, student development professionals face within the context of sexuality. So in whatever way we can, we're interested in getting and working toward bettering that relationship, and then also involving Residence Life in some of the initiatives that we're working toward, and doing whatever we can to lend a hand to some of the problems, maybe regarding policy. I know RAs really struggle to address policy given the sort of relationship. And I'm done after this last sentence. So with some of these things, we can begin a line of communication, hopefully through SALT training, where you're not put in a situation like that, if that helps at all.
And a quick question regarding the cabinet position that you've been expressing a lot. I'm curious, what purpose then, if it is that person's job to get the voices of the students in, what is the difference between that and the responsibilities of the student representatives which have been in place?
Yeah, that's really good. So the student representatives, we have representatives across CAS, so divisional representatives, and then we have actually 2 representatives that are appointed from student organizations, and then we have some in the freshman and sophomore classes. And structurally, the truth is they can't gauge all within their division. Some of them do a really good job, maybe given the size of their division, but some, like nursing, it's near impossible to work toward communicating with them on a regular basis. So the VP for Marketing and Communication, that's their sort of singular responsibility. They're not going to be working toward anything outside of that. So while divisional representatives are working with their division chairs, students to address concerns specific to academics, the VP for Marketing and Communication will be actually gauging student voice on periphery issues, not necessarily related specifically to discipline. So divisional representatives, they're working to address issues within in the division, and Marketing and Communication will do a really good job at addressing some of those other issues. So things related to student life, the chaplaincy, et cetera.
All right, thank you very much for that question. With just a couple minutes left, 2 more questions.
I only have one question. Okay. I know that all of SGA, all the student body, everything doesn't rest solely on SGA. That's impossible.
Yeah.
But basically, how would you describe your personal and positional leadership style, and what are some strengths and weaknesses that would bring to SGA as a whole?
In 140 characters or less.
Oh gosh.
Actually, a little bit more. That would be good.
Kayla, what are you majoring in by chance?
I'm majoring in leadership.
Okay. So as I guess giving sort of a formal theoretical response, I'm not really able to do that because I've never taken a leadership course here at IWU. But in terms of I guess I can speak about it within the context of my strengths. So my number 1 strength is includer. My second is woo, third achiever, fourth learner, fifth ideation. So my top two strengths are really about involving others and affirming others and including others in what I'm doing. So in terms of leadership style, that's really where my heart is. And as far as implementing that within SGA, I'm hoping just to continue developing in that way.
Just to qualify, I wasn't looking for like terms or
Okay,
anything.
okay.
No. And not even like strengths quests, but just like how you see yourself operating.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
strengths and weaknesses that come from that.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Just want to let Caleb do that.
If it's the same thing, then that's cool.
Yeah, so includer, woo, sometimes you can spread yourself too thin given those strengths. You can include, I guess, too many people and sometimes sensitive conversations. I guess those are the obvious weaknesses to being an includer and being a winner over, if that's a real thing. Yeah.
And now
Thanks.
Caleb's response.
Well, personally, as my majors are international relations and psychology, I love analyzing large groups and the micro interactions between people. It's just my favorite thing to read and study about. As such, I analyzed my cabinet well when I chose them, and I did my best to choose a cabinet that would complement my weaknesses. For instance, planning and thinking through every single detail and task, as my roommate is laughing hilariously in the audience now. I chose a very structured, organized cabinet that can easily hand me a pro and cons list of every single thing I say, and the problems I'll have enacting it, the difficulties I'll have enacting it, but also the benefits and if it's worth it. My personal strengths would be, I'm a go-getter. I love getting things done. I love it when students hand me problems and I get to tackle them and help them figure out how to solve it, or the Foreign Language Committee getting a survey approved by the IRB in one day. So hopefully we'll complement and balance each other out.
Yeah, and just if I can attest to that, Caleb really has done a great job in leading within SGA this year, chairing an ad hoc and making a lot of progress. So don't let that be a concern or, I guess, a point in which you decide your vote. Because I think we're both qualified uniquely in that way regarding leadership. So thanks, Kayla.
And last question, very quickly, Mr. Augello.
Yes. Hi. So we've heard, Kayla brought up a very interesting point about character, leadership qualities, and that's kind of, the rest of the conversation is revolved around student representation, being responsive to students' needs. Having experienced the position that Tim is now in and you're both competing for, there was very strong need to have a thick skin at times because often facing decisions, there wasn't a clear majority, or sometimes the majority of student opinion was not informed as I was because of all the confidential stuff that I had to keep in the back of my mind. So my question is pretty simple, like yes or no, but I hope no one misquotes either of you in your response. Are you willing to make hard decisions that students won't agree with sometimes?
Mr. Bowers.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. I'm glad you did. Basically, I view that as a part of any leadership position. And as we've both been in multiple leadership positions, I think we've both had a few stories where people have become slightly agitated with our decisions and may or may not have aggressively verbally attacked us. And as such, I think I've gotten fairly used to it, but at the same time still trying to listen to their opinions and value them, write them down, check with others to make sure that I acted in the way I best could, and then reconcile anything that I can with them once tensions have calmed down.
And then to wrap us up, Tim.
That's a really good question, and there have been a couple of times this year where I've had to do things sort of like that. But when we think of representation, we often think about it within the context of the majority, right? But this position isn't necessarily about always representing the majority. This past month, we had the opportunity to host a forum on LGBTQ issues, on sexuality. And I think the majority of us here at the university would sort of lean toward heterosexuality. But it's providing opportunities to still address those issues that the minority are concerned with, that those are the ones that are marginalized, that are sort of disregarded. That's also what this position is about. It's not about always, hitting the media policy and increased chapel opportunities and better, food service with Pioneer. It's about speaking up for those that don't have a voice, for representing the voiceless. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much for your question. And would you guys join me in just thanking